Traditionally, when playing games on a PC, it's pretty much been a case of choosing between high frame rates at a resolution like 1080p, or choosing a higher resolution like 4K but at lower frame rates. Well, I want the best of both worlds. I want 4K and I want 144 plus FPS. Today, thanks to MSI, I'm going to see how possible that is. Hi guys, I'm Matt and welcome to Kit Guru, and I just want to mention quickly straight out the gate, today's video is a bit different. It's not a review as such. As I mentioned just now, today I'm going to be taking on the role of a digital crackhead, chasing a high that's been out of reach ever since I got into this hobby as a kid. 4K gaming at frame rates that don't feel like I'm gaming on a console. This monitor sitting next to me is the brand new MSI MAG 274 UPF. It's got a 4K rapid IPS panel, a 144Hz refresh rate, claimed 1 millisecond response time, is both G-Sync and FreeSync premium compatible, and it's got a few other tricks up its sleeve which I'll talk about when we get to gaming. The bottom line is, I want to get the most out of this monitor. There's not much point having a 144Hz refresh rate if I'm stuck at 60 FPS. To help me achieve that goal, I've got some help from the system in the background. This is the MSI Infinity desktop from Cyberpower PC. It's got some pretty juicy specs. It's got an Intel i7-14700KF CPU, which is a 20-core CPU that tops out at 5.5 GHz on the 8 P cores and then 4.3 GHz on the E cores. It's got an MSI RTX 4080 Suprim X, which you can probably see in the background. That's got 16 gig of GDDR6X memory. It's got 32 gig of Corsair Vengeance DDR5 RAM running at 5600 MHz, an MSI MAG Z790 Tomahawk Wi-Fi motherboard, an MSI MAG A850GL 850W 80 plus gold power supply, and then a 2TB Kingston Fury Renegade M.2 PCI Express 4.0 NVMe SSD. That was a mouthful. So, like I said, this is a pretty powerful machine that should help me get close to the magic number, 144. Right, let's get into the gaming and chase some frames, shall we? Let's kick things off with some good old Call of Duty, specifically the brand new Modern Warfare 3. I went into this game expecting to have a hard time hitting the monitor's refresh rate cap without butchering the graphics settings so much that it made no point playing at 4K. Throughout this whole video, I want to maintain as much graphical eye candy as I can and still get the numbers on the FPS counter. But more importantly, the feeling that comes with gaming at a high frame rate. With that in mind, I opted not to use DLSS in this title and go for full 4K, 100% rendered, crispy goodness. With the settings at their highest, absolute maximum, the FPS was decent. It was around 100, sometimes flirting with the low 120s and sometimes dipping down. But I want more out of the game if I can get it. So I tweaked some settings, and with some optimized settings, I managed to push it up to 150 to 160. That's more like the figures that I'm looking for. And this was mainly due to turning down a lot of lighting and effects settings that do make the game look a little bit nicer. It kind of counteracts what I said a minute ago. But in this scenario, in a fast-paced FPS title, I don't really notice, or I don't stop to admire the view. In this title and games like this, for me, it's all about speed and fluidity. As for response time or overdrive settings on the monitor itself on the 274 UPF, there are 3 options: normal, fast and fastest. I stuck with fast when playing COD as it's the most balanced option that offers the least amount of ghosting without introducing any unwanted amounts of overshoot, and it left me with a very fluid experience at this frame rate. So we're off to a good start. Now let's head over to some Assassin's Creed, specifically Assassin's Creed Mirage, the latest in that lineup. And DLSS came in very handy in this title. Now, I get it, some people love it, some people don't. I personally think DLSS is a very useful feature that comes in handy in situations just like this. Some are going to argue that this isn't true 4K gaming, as the title's being rendered at a lower resolution in the background, then it's been upscaled back to 4K. But to me, it doesn't look all that different when actually playing the game. And I'm not going to start comparing screenshots and nitpicking differences. It's all about playing the game and the game looking great, which it does, and I've enjoyed testing it on this system. A massive open world RPG like this is always going to be very demanding, but with DLSS set to quality and some of the more demanding settings turned down a notch or two, like the amount of objects that are rendering in the world, for example, the FPS is sitting above the monitor's refresh rate. Not only does it look good, it feels great when free running and climbing around the environment. Inputs are fluid, movement feels intuitive, partially down to the game and then partially down to the system and the monitor that I'm using. So far, it's been relatively easy to hit the numbers that I'm looking for. Let's dial things up a notch. This is Microsoft Flight Simulator, and this title admittedly isn't one that I play all that often, as you can no doubt probably tell from the clips that I've recorded. But it's an absolutely beautiful game that makes me kind of say wow every time I see it. It's just breathtaking sometimes. For this title, I turned to the magic of DLSS 3 frame generation, thanks to the 40 series card that's in the system, and it was 100% worth it. The game looks absolutely stunning, and I got it running quite close to the magic 144 FPS, and that's on ultra settings at 4K. That's pretty insane. The sharp detail in the landscape looks gorgeous, the colours pop, and in my opinion, this title is just one of the most immersive experiences in gaming, bar none. And then at 4K, at this sort of frame rate, just takes it up a level. Just dipping my toes into the 4K experience on this game has made me want to explore it further. And I've even been looking at like getting a joystick and learning how to fly properly and stuff like that. It's that good. It's kind of sucked me in. The monitor is set to the user profile for brightness, contrast and sharpness. Brightness and contrast are both on 70. Sharpness is on 0. There's no added sharpness. And that's helping to make Flight Sim look even more beautiful. I was genuinely blown away by how good this game looks at this resolution. Moving on to a game that I have played a lot of then, Escape from Tarkov. A title that's notorious for being both brutal to play and brutal to run. Again, I'm using DLSS to help push up the FPS in this game, along with keeping overdrive on fast on the monitor, picture settings on the same user profile as COD and Flight Sim to keep things looking good. The FPS ended up settling just under the monitor's refresh rate the majority of the time, with any dips being kept smooth by G-Sync being turned on. And Tarkov is a notoriously, I don't want to say poorly optimized game, but it needs some work. It's still in beta, so it is hard to run this game, especially at 4K at high frame rates. Most settings in the title are not on their highest, which, to be fair, even a NASA supercomputer is going to struggle to run this game at absolutely max settings at 4K. But they are at a level which keeps the game looking and running great. Visuals in Tarkov are one of the most important aspects of surviving, along with audio. If you can see who is shooting at you, then you've at least got a chance of shooting back in the right direction. Playing this game in 4K not only helps with spotting enemies, but just like the other games that I've tested so far, it just adds to the immersion and makes it just a better experience. Then add in the fact that this setup can run this level of visual quality while maintaining high FPS. That just makes it feel like a better optimised game, because believe me, when things aren't running as good as they can in Tarkov, it can feel like a bit of a janky mess. What's more, the monitor has got a few other tricks to help, like a crosshair, which in this game is very, very useful. And then there's the optic scope, which feels like borderline cheating, if I'm honest. It magnifies the centre portion of your screen. It's perfect when you're out of rubles and you can't afford a scope. Moving on to a title that's a bit more fast-paced then, Apex Legends. Now, off the bat, I'm certainly nowhere near pro level in this game, but having fluid movement and a fast enough display to keep up is vital. Movement in Apex is like nothing else that I've played, and it feels like it's one of the most important parts of the game. FPS here with the default settings was a fair amount above 144, and the game ran as smooth as butter. Spotting enemies in the distance was great in 4K. The added detail that you get over 1080p or 1440p really helps you pick out the details. I had to add a quick launch command to the launch parameters of the game to quickly get around the engine limitations for the FPS cap, but that was done just to show the performance that's capable for this video. If I were playing day to day on this setup, I'd go down the route of limiting the FPS to the refresh rate, and then I'd leave the engine limitations alone just so it works as intended, as the developers intended. All in all though, this game feels and plays really smooth. No doubt in part to the pretty powerful system in the background, and more specifically the RTX 4080 that I've got powering this whole nerdy experiment. Finally then, we're going to look at a game that I've been playing quite a lot recently, EA Sports FC24, it still feels weird calling it that and not FIFA. Now, max settings in this title, check. No DLSS, check. FPS constantly higher than the refresh rate, also check. While this isn't the most demanding title in the world, playing it in 4K gives it a level of realism that you just don't get at lower resolutions, and the fluidity in the movement of your player that comes from the high frame rate makes the game feel much better to play, especially when you're only controlling one player in the clubs mode. The display and system that I'm using easily coped with this title, and it felt easy to react to stuff happening on the pitch when playing it. The green of the pitch really popped out and it's full of vibrance. I'm still using the same brightness and contrast settings I've been using throughout all of the tests. 70 brightness, 70 contrast, and 0 added sharpness, with G-Sync turned on and the settings absolutely maxed out. I found that the monitor settings that I just mentioned, the contrast and the brightness, found those the best to suit my eyes and really pleasant to look at. So in conclusion, and to sum up this video then, and I've got to preface it by saying 99% of the time here on Kit Guru, I look at peripherals, chairs, the occasional pre-built machine or laptop, monitor reviews and stuff like that, although this isn't a review, but monitors are usually handled by Dominic. And with my gaming rig running at 1440p, I've not really had much of a chance to test out gaming at 4K in my spare time when I'm not reviewing a mouse or whatever. Making this video has been a bit of an eye-opener for me. 4K high FPS gaming is achievable with the latest generation of graphics cards, and it looks absolutely amazing. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to go back now. I might have to upgrade. It might cost me a lot of money, this video. Every game that I tried out during this test performed really well. It looked even better, and it felt as smooth as anything I'd play on my own machine at 1440p, albeit my personal rig has a 4070 and not a 4080 like I've been playing with in this video. For the times when the FPS has dipped below 144, the MAG 274 UPF has adaptive sync, so it's going to keep things smooth on any GPU, and plus it's officially rated as G-Sync compatible by Nvidia. Happy days. Times have changed, I suppose, is the underlying feeling. 4K is the new 1440p, and I honestly feel like 1080p's gaming days are numbered. And that's the end of the video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Please leave a like down below if you did. I'd really appreciate it. Don't forget to subscribe to Kit Guru to keep up with the latest PC gaming news and reviews. If you go down below the video, you'll find links to our merch store, our website, our Patreon page if you want to check any of that stuff out. I'll speak to you in the next one, guys. This has been the 4K, my delve into 4K gaming to find out exactly what this system and this monitor can do. And I've really enjoyed it. I'm going to end up upgrading my computer, and it's going to cost me loads of money. So there's that. I'll speak to you in the next one. Look after yourselves. See you later.